We need to talk about something that I've been seeing a lot of lately, which is people having these really complicated money routines and budgets, and basically just all these different ways that tell them how to spend their money, but never actually save, invest, or hit their real money goals. So I want to talk about that a bit and how the complicated systems aren't always the best ones. I'm going to walk you through what my monthly money routine looks like, but first, I'm going to grab a coffee because I clearly still have my morning voice, and then I'll meet you over there. Okay, so now we're here at the desk setup, and I wanted to pick up from what I was just talking about, which is when people have these really complicated money routines. I don't know if everyone's doing this, but I feel like I'm seeing it a lot on YouTube. And sometimes it looks really cute to have all these nice budgeting tools and spreadsheets. Maybe it's fun to have this complicated setup where you have like a saving account for this and a sinking account for this and 5 credit cards and one paycheck goes to these bills, and it's basically just this complicated web of your money setup. But sometimes I think that people really lose track of the point of budgeting is the result. So if you're just setting up all these different ways for you to spend money instead of actually hit your money goals, sometimes your money goals might have to do with spending, but for the most part, the end of the day, the goal is to either pay off your debt, save some money, invest some money, something like that. And when you're just creating all these ways that make it feel like you have your shit together with your money, but really you're not hitting those results, then it kind of defeats the purpose. And I do want to say that I get that for some people it's fun to have that complicated setup, and as long as you're hitting your goals and your results and you're keeping that big picture in mind, then that's fine. But for a lot of people, simple is going to be best, and it's going to actually keep your eye on the main point. And also, the more automatic you can make things, the better. I kind of consider it similar to taking notes in school, when sometimes it'd be fun to make them all artsy and cute looking, but then you kind of forget that you're actually supposed to be studying and remembering the info. You can do both as long as you're still doing the main point, and I think it's kind of the same when it comes to your budget setup. So for the rest of the video, I want to talk about what my money routine is in my setup. It doesn't mean it's right either, but it's what works for me, and also it's simple, which I think is a good starting point. So for myself, I have, how do we work this out? So we're self-employed now. We pay ourselves out on the first of the month. I get paid $2,036 every month. Now, our income actually varies. You'll hear that from self-employed people all the time, right? Our income's going to be different month to month. But how we have it set up is that our income comes into our business banking account, and then on the first of the month, we pay ourselves just a set salary, and anything in excess of that is building up in that account. And we'll figure out how to pay that out to ourselves later. We have plans for that on the back end, and you'll hear about it in the future. But for now, I get paid $2,036 on the first of every month. Okay, so this is the budget spreadsheet on the screen right now that you would have seen before on our channel if you've been here before. This is kind of what I recommend doing in terms of a standard budget. So what your goal is to spend on every month. Now, every month's different. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But ideally, at the beginning of the year or whenever, you can start at any time, set up what your ideal budget would look like. That's what I've done, at least here. So again, I know my rent is the same every month. My internet, my phone, utilities are pretty similar every month. So I have those pretty locked in. And then everything else from there. So for me, it could be subscriptions. I have Netflix written down, groceries, restaurants, coffee shops. For me, a massage and prescription is standard every month. And then other is kind of what I play around with. Now, it's going to differ for me. It's been interesting switching into having self-employed income and a lower income to play around with. So I'll talk about that and what actually happened for me this month. But I really do like the idea of having this standard budget. It's your goal, and then you can change it up and make it more specific every single month. But then you kind of have an overall idea of how much you want to be spending in each category. And then what this really helps you with is figure out how much you can automatically have going to your investments every single month, or your savings or your debt payoff, whatever stage you're at. So this looks the same as it did at the beginning of the year for me. It's kind of my standard goal for the year, and where all my accounts were at the beginning too. Kind of helps me stay on track. And now let's go into what my actual budget for this month looked like. Actually, before we went to this month, I did want to talk about this. So this is what my accounts looked like as of December 11th. But the point is still relevant here. So I have this amount in my checking account all the time. It's a little bit high. I'm doing this also because the income's still been a little bit of a new change for me, but it's good to have that bank in your checking account, like I was saying, so that you always have the money to come in and out. You're not going to be worried about it being at zero or not having the money there for rent or something like that. And then that way you don't have to have all these different accounts for rent to come out of and this to come out of and that. It's just your money hub. You have an overflow in there. If you're new to building up, maybe you're done with your debt and you don't know where to save to first, maybe do your emergency fund, then build this account up for like a month, and then get on to your other goals. So I really like doing that. It means that I never have to stress about having money in my checking account. It's there. On top of that, this is my savings account, my emergency fund. I have some extra money in there that I'm going to talk about in just a second, actually. Your emergency fund does not have to be this high. We typically say about 6 months of your necessary expenses. That's what I do. And then you can see what's in my investment accounts outside of that. But now let's talk about this month. So this is our annual budget spreadsheet that we've shown before. It's also for free on our website. If you guys want to use the same one, it's up on stephandden.com totally for free. What I like to do with this one, again, you know what my standard budget looks like. These are my goals. This is my actual budget. So this is the only really thing that I do with my money routine. Everything else is kind of automatic, like I said, but on a monthly basis, I'm filming this right now, January 31st. So on the last day of the month, maybe the first day of the next month, whatever falls closest to the weekend for you, is typically how I do it. I go in and I fill out exactly what I actually spent in each of my categories. So basically I pull up my banking apps. I have two basically. I have my main bank with my checking account in it, and then I also have my Neo credit card. So what I do is I go through both of my credit cards. I go through anything that came out automatically from my checking account too, and I go through all of those different expenses and fill out this sheet. That's the only manual activity I really do. What I find it really helps me with is really sticking in my head, like this month, for example. I knew I spent too much on Uber Eats, but I didn't know how much. And when you actually see the amount, which you can probably see on the screen, or I'll talk about it in just a second, it's a lot more than my standard budget goal. And it kind of makes it sink in for you so you know what to do the next month. Also, it doesn't have to be a negative activity. Like that one, for example, I'm like, oh, shouldn't do that. But it can also help you out just for planning, right? Next month, in my standard budget, I don't have a dentist appointment because that doesn't happen that often, but I'm going to have to go to the dentist next month. So it kind of prepares me prepares me for what's happening next, and it just makes you aware of what's going on. Also, sometimes that can sound scary, but I feel like it gets less scary the more that you do this activity and you're just aware of your money. Now, I think paying off credit cards is interesting because a lot of people don't know the best method to do this. It's going to be a little different, again, for everyone too. The main thing is that you don't want to have more than 30% of your credit limit utilized at a time. So for you, if you're someone who's going to be spending, like let's say your limit's $1,000, you don't want to have more than $300 at a time. So probably pay it off when you see it hitting that amount. You also don't want to be late, obviously, and you don't want to pay it off too frequently. Tons of different rules going on. But for me, I keep an eye on it every few days. If it's hitting those levels, I'll pay it off. The other thing that I'll do is just the minimum, pay it off once a month before the statement balance is due, but maybe twice a month is more so my goal. Okay, so those are the two manual things I do, going through my accounts, filling out the spreadsheet, and paying off credit cards. Otherwise, everything else is set up automatically, and we'll talk through that. So again, like I said, let's specifically look at this January column. That's this month that just finished. My salary, like I said, we pay ourselves out first of the month, $2,036. Bonus, another more relevant if you have a full-time job probably, but maybe we'll pay ourselves out a bonus sometimes. Emergency fund, this doesn't mean I have $0 in there. You guys saw on the other sheet. This is what I've allocated to it this month. And my plan is not to allocate any money there right now because it's fully funded. My investing though, this says $1,000. So what I'm doing with my investments right now, when we switched to being self-employed, I had my emergency fund and I also had another savings account with $10,000 in it. I was specifically saving up for like a real estate investment. That's not going to happen as soon as we wanted it to based on our job change basically. And also it's a good time to be investing in the market too. So instead I've decided with that $10,000 fund, I'm going to be putting $1,000 a month into my robo-advisor Wealthsimple Invest still. So that's not coming out of my monthly income. That's coming out of that savings account that I have $10,000 in. So it's not really attached to anything else, but I am doing that every month as of right now. My Wealthsimple Trade TFSA, that's my single stock investing. We just talked about this in a recent video, so we'll link it for you to watch, but I'm not putting any money there right now. So now on to expenses, which is the fun stuff. My rent is always $925 a month. That's half of the rent. Dennis pays the other half for a total of $1,850. Internet is different, so fun change. We actually finally, if you've been following for a while, you know we've been meaning to do this. We finally changed our internet to a lower cost one. We've been with Rogers and it got all the way up to $122 a month, which is extremely expensive. We just hadn't switched it yet. We were gonna go for a fiber stream or something like that because they typically have really cheap ones, like $50 total per month. But we first tried to negotiate with Rogers to see if they could lower it for us, and they did, which was awesome. So we're now paying $62 a month for the exact same service we got before. It's unlimited. I don't know all the details, but basically we got a new modem, which was fun. And so this month we still paid the total of $122 because it wasn't done yet. My half is $61, but moving forward it's going to be a lot cheaper. Otherwise, this month for utilities specifically, it always changes. It's max $30 each per month, but it was $27.72 was my half for the month of January. And now we get into food, which was our most expensive cost of the month this month. specifically for me. So groceries, our typical goal, we split the groceries 50-50 between Dennis and I. So normally our goal is $300 each. It was clearly over that this month at $427.88. That's not the goal, but again, went a little higher this month. Something to keep an eye on. I think that we've been just kind of a little bit more relaxed with buying whatever we want. And food prices are kind of a little bit higher right now. So that's something I know now to keep an eye on in the future months. Now, the real problem in my budget for the month really was restaurants. You'll know my goal for month is only $50, which is like 1 or 2 rounds of Uber Eats. And I clearly went way too high here. It's kind of funny too, because my goal for January was to spend even less money on restaurants and Uber Eats. Didn't really do that. And I don't really want to justify why. I was about to justify why. See, this is what happens. I was going to say that we've been like working a lot this month and I wanted to order food sometimes, which is why I did it, but not a good thing. So, it's fine. Not a big deal, but in the future months, my goal is to not spend so much on the Uber Eats category. Probably the next 2 months, I'll try and really dial it down. Maybe spend nothing. Probably shouldn't say that because I probably won't do that. But stay tuned for an update on how I do with that. And then coffee shops, my goal is $50. I only spent $25, happily enough. Because I did have some gift cards left over from Christmas to make up the rest of the budget. I personally don't spend anything on public transportation or taxi services because we can pretty much walk everywhere that we go. My health category, it works out. I don't pay for my prescription every month, birth control, but it works out to being about $26 a month, so I've kind of spread it across on a monthly basis. I do get 1 massage every month for $141, no dentist this month. And now let's talk about the personal costs. So I feel like I get the most questions when we do budgeting videos talking about my accounts about personal costs. Like, where do I put my money for hair care, nails, I don't know, all of the different personal costs that you could have, especially like when it comes to clothes and all that type of stuff. So for me, I try to take that out of my other budget, or if I get any extra money as a gift or something like that, like actual extra money, not me deciding I have it, but getting unexpected money that I might use on myself. Like when I worked full time, if I got a bonus, I'd allocate some to my investments, some to spend on me, kind of as a treat, Christmas money, stuff like that. But for the most part, I try and have it come out of my other budget. Now, the phone bill is different. That's its own standard category. I'll be switching that as of next month, so the bill's going to be lower finally, which is amazing. For this month, it was still $100, $101 to be specific. But otherwise, on personal care, this month it was $87.97. This was a trip to Shoppers that I made. Again, this is over the $50 goal that I have, but I did stock up. I got some eye masks and face masks, I don't know, toothpaste, command strips, some random things like that. But that's where that comes out of. Now, otherwise, my goal technically is to have all 3 of these go no more than $50. That's the overall standard budget I've set, but it was at $87.97 for this month. The other thing to note here is that the subscriptions, I've actually finally canceled my Netflix subscription. People comment on that all the time, how Dennis and I both pay for Netflix. I have canceled mine. I used to split with my brother, but we decided we don't want to use it anymore. So now I am splitting with Dennis. But for this month, I had no cost other than, we'll split the cost, by the way, at some point. We just haven't this month yet. But I did forget to cancel my Apple TV subscription. Ugh, this was annoying. This happens sometime, guys, even when I'm an avid budgeter. But the good thing is I caught it after 1 month. So Apple TV gave me the 3 months free when we got new laptops. And then I just forgot to cancel after the 3 months free started. So I'm canceling it as of today so that this doesn't happen next month, but wanted to make sure it showed on the budget. So my total expenses for the month was $2,046. You guys will remember that my income is $2,036, so I overspent by $10. Not ideal. My standard budget has it that I have $200 or $300 left over. I obviously went way too high in groceries and restaurants, and then a little bit higher in personal care too. Also, my budget for the year is set up so that I have the cheaper phone and internet bill, which will be happening as of next month, happily enough. So we'll see some things reduced for next month. But for now, again, I do have that overflow in my checking account, so not a big deal for me, just $10 less than what I had before in my buffer. And that's what it's looking like. Also, again, I did invest that $1,000. It doesn't really apply to the closing balance here because, again, that comes from my $10,000 fund, not from my income, but that's where I sat for this month. All right, you guys, that is a wrap for this video. The main message I really wanted to get across is that it's really important when you're dealing with your budgets and your money that you're being honest with yourself. I kind of touched on how it's really easy to justify or explain away why you spent more money than that was in your budget. But again, your budget's really your goal for yourself. Hopefully your budget is honest and realistic for you, and it's reflecting what your money goals are, whether that's saving, investing, spending. Maybe it is sometimes saving to spend on something, but hopefully that's really thought through, and you're not just calling it saving money just to spend a few months down the line, if that makes sense. Also, a lot of the times people have all these different accounts, right? And it's a way to organize your money, having these different spending or saving accounts, but sometimes it's also a way to justify you being good with your money because you have this structure. But really, again, the outcome of all those different accounts is just money that's going to be spent and not actually going towards you and your future goals. So again, you're only hurting yourself if you're not being honest with you and your money. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this and what your monthly money routines, your budgets, all of that look like. So let us know in the comments. Of course, if you haven't seen some of our previous videos already, make sure you check them out next door after this one. And we'll be back later this week with Dennis, of course, joining me to do another quick takes video. So get ready for that and we'll see you then. And before then, make sure you subscribe and like this video down below.